I have a vision of what the future looks like, but I didn't know 6 years ago, 5 years ago, that AI was going to be what it is today. I didn't know 20 years ago that social media would be what it is today. And so you've got to adapt, you've got to adjust. And sometimes the vision of the future has to change too, because the circumstances around you are not what you hoped they would be. And that's okay too. You know, we pick ourselves back up. It goes back to that perseverance thing that I said from the beginning, and we find a new vision for the future and we move towards that as best we can.
Welcome back to Mic'd Up. I'm your host, Mike DiCioccio, and today we have an inspiring guest who launched his marketing agency at only 17 years old. And under his leadership, that company has become a top StoryBrand certified agency and HubSpot Platinum partner, earning recognition on the Inc. 5000 list twice. He's also the author of Building a Business That Lasts, and it's also the name of his podcast, which is a top 5% most downloaded podcast on the planet, folks. He's passionate about giving back, and he serves on 2 nonprofit boards. When he's not growing his businesses, he loves spending time with his family. He's down in St. Augustine, Florida. Welcome to the show, CEO of Business Builders, Jay Owen.
Hey, Mike, thanks for having me on the show.
Thanks, my man. I appreciate you being here. I was joking with you off camera that I feel like I got to know you because, I got to produce a couple episodes that you were on as a guest. And I finally just reached out and I said, dude, I got to get you on my show. Everyone else is having their fun talking with you. Like, now it's my turn. So I want everyone to know your website, your social, all the cool stuff you're doing with your business and the different platforms you have and your podcast. Everything is clickable in the show notes so people can dive right into your content as well. I want to start with that. I mentioned it in the bio. I think it's really cool. You started a digital agency, right? A marketing agency, I should say, at 17 years old. At 17, I don't even remember what I was trying to do. Meet girls and play the drums and didn't know what the heck I was doing. Maybe hold down a job if I was lucky. So what inspired you to start a digital marketing agency at 17? And how did you really navigate the challenges of being a young entrepreneur?
Yeah, I've always had entrepreneurship in my blood a little bit. People always ask if it's nature versus nurture, and I'm like, it's a little bit of both, I think. I had an uncle who ran a business, had a grandfather who ran a restaurant business, and so you see other people running businesses and you think, maybe I could do that too. And I had many fledgling businesses as a young child, reeling a wagon around a ballpark, selling concessions out of it, and running a lawn business when I was 12, like most other boys in Florida. And
That's awesome.
I was a nerd at heart, though. And so anytime I get to be behind a computer instead of out in the Florida sun was the preference. And started building websites at a really young age, about as early as the internet became a thing, which is probably about 11 or 12 for me. Wow. And I got an internship at a company up in Jacksonville, Florida when I was 16, building websites, getting paid whatever it was, $8-9 an hour, and pretty happy about the opportunity because I got to learn from a lot of other guys who knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
And I certainly, when I turned 17, I started building this business, but it was more of a hobby than anything at that point. I think the first year, the total revenue was about $5,500. But, when you're 17, that's a lot of money.
But you were doing it, yeah.
Put gas in the car.
You proved that $5,500 was a proof of concept that, hey, someone paid me to do this more than just for me doing it for free.
Yeah, I always tell people, entrepreneurs of any kind, it's like many people may tell you that you have a good idea, but the only way you really know you have a good idea is when somebody writes a check. Well,
yeah,
we're not writing a lot of checks anymore. Maybe they're pulling out a credit card, But when somebody actually starts paying for something, if you can get one person to give you $1, somebody else probably will too.
It's so true. Now, without you, some people are funny about sharing their age, and I'm funny with trying to do math, but how many years ago was this that
26 years ago.
Holy smokes.
And we've grown pretty much year over year since then. I have 1 year where we were down by 1%, which still gets me. But otherwise, we've grown every year since then, from $5,500 to a multi-million-dollar agency today.
God had to humble you, man. He had to keep you.
That's right. That's what I say that it was.
He heard the... Oh, there goes Jay's head as it floats away. Oh, that's awesome.
My head is large, both figuratively and literally some days.
So how many years? 26 years?
Yeah, 26 years.
So, when I say digital marketing, I'm thinking it hasn't even been around that long, but it has, because we're in the year 2025 and it doesn't feel like it. It doesn't feel like it. But, so we're talking like 99. This was like the break of turn of the century.
Yeah, we probably didn't even call it digital marketing back then. I mean, really, I was just building websites. It was basic website building back then. That was about all it was.
Yeah, and then eventually email marketing became a thing, and like email open rates were like 97% in the beginning.
That's right.
And now they're like, if you're good at it, you might get 30%, and that's still considered good, right?
That's
so
right.
Obviously in 26 years, digital marketing went from starting to being this incredible, I don't know what you would call it now. It's a machine, it's huge. It's so share some of the big changes over the years. Anything that you felt like, you mentioned building websites. Was that your thing, or like, what do you see? How it's obviously different, but are there some like pinnacle things you want to talk about with the changes that you've experienced over time?
I mean, structurally, there were a few big things. Obviously, social media and mobile phones were a big thing. But lately, I always say there were 3 times in my life where I thought this changed everything about everything. The first was the internet itself. I was probably 11 or 12, like I said. And I just thought this is the democratization of information and distribution is going to be such an incredible opportunity to connect with people everywhere. And people are like, did you really think that when you were 11 or 12? I'm like, I did. I've been 40 since I was 12. Now I actually am over 40.
I was trying to do the math. So we're pretty similar. I'm 39.
Yeah, I'm 43. So,
okay.
But I got 5 kids, so I'm basically like 65. So
they think you are.
They had ages. They had age.
I have a 10-year-old. Oh, I hear what you're saying there, but I have a 10-year-old who, when I tell her I'm 39, I could see her looking at me like I'm ancient. I'm like, what the hell? But dude, the reason I bring that up is, and I hate interrupting your answer, but like, we've experienced what an incredible time. 43 years old. That means you got to see everything from, AOL when it was on a CD that you would get on a Blockbuster countertop, right?
Oh, yeah.
To, dial-up speeds, to the first, starting Facebook when we were in college and you had to have like a .edu, remember that?
Yeah.
To seeing Facebook just be this thing now, everyone's mom and grandmother's on Facebook, and then Instagram, we saw it all. TikTok, what it's become today. I feel we've lived in one of the most incredible times in history because of that last 40 years. And I feel we have an appreciation where, like you mentioned, having kids, they don't know what life without an iPhone is, right? So like the fact that we grew up in the 80s. It might have been
better, but
check this out. We grew up in the 80s. We appreciate what we have because we had phones hanging off the wall. We had TVs with 3 channels. At least I did, with a dial. Right. You had to walk up and get the dial. And now I sound like an old man talking about the good old days. But we got to experience that. Floppy disks, Oregon Trail on, a computer that barely even computed anything. And now we see what it is today. So like, yeah, you were 11 and the light bulb went off for you. For me, it was a lot later than that. But it's just incredible, like how this thing right here is more powerful than the computers that used to be, the sizes of a gymnasium. Couldn't even do 1/1000th of what this does. So what an experience, like, to be a part of all that.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's changed drastically over time, and business tends to do that, but you got to adapt and change. And if you don't get to stay in business.
Right. And you've done it. You've been changing over time. A lot of times, that's actually a great segue. Thanks for peeking at my notes. A lot of times, great changes, right? A good idea is met with a lot of criticism. And I think of AI, right? Everyone wants to talk about it. They think, cutting edge. Look, AI, it's here. It's here to stay, whether people are on board with it or not. I mean, I use Monica. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but it's an open AI platform that has GPT-4o on it. But there's still, it's funny how, like, I see some people resisting it. I understand why, but it's kind of like how people resisted social media in the beginning and thought it was just this evil thing. It's like, well, it's happening. Businesses are going to be advertising on it, whether you like it or not. So for us, we use it as a company for content writing and tasks and ideas. It's helped me write different business agreements, even just to iron them out, where I'd have to hire attorneys for days and hours. I can get it done in 5 minutes now. I'd love you to share that. You just talked about all the transitions with different things, but how are you, like, onboarding AI now into your marketing? And what does the actual future look like fueled by AI as an engine for marketing?
Yeah, I mean, it is. I consider it at this point like an extension to every team member. If I have team members who, I wouldn't hire somebody right now who said, "Yeah, I don't use AI," or "I won't use AI." I just wouldn't hire that person.
Right.
They're just not going to be effective enough. They're not going to be good enough at their job, frankly. And some people would push back on that, but in this digital marketing space, especially, you've got to know how to use the latest tools. And there's nothing newer than the AI models that are out there. And the thing that's crazy though is like it's just changing so fast. I mean, it's faster than dog years. You know, it's moving so incredibly fast that what didn't work a month ago is working now, and that's one of the biggest like mistakes or problems that I see with people everywhere is they'll say, well, I tried it, but last time I had to create an image with it, it made a person with 6 fingers and it can't do hands. And it's like, well, it used to not be able to do that a year ago, but it can do it now.
Or how about this? So fine, it doesn't make, it makes a hand with 6 fingers on it. So you're just going to throw out the billion other things that it can do for you, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And now, like you said, the image, and the images are incredible. And I was part of we got to make our action figure thing, and I did that because my daughter got a kick out of it. But
yeah,
but you're right. What didn't work a month ago works now, and it keeps getting smarter and smarter, which I think is a great thing. There's people who are scared about what it could mean in the hands of the wrong people, but that's the same thing with. I don't want to get into this whole weeds, but like. A gun, right? A gun is a tool, right? In the hands of the wrong person, it could kill somebody. An innocent life can be gone. It also, in the hands of the right person, could save an innocent life too. So it's a tool. I hope that never becomes a warfare situation in the wrong hands. But right now, all I can do is, as a business owner, think, how can this tool help us? Like you said, if someone's interviewing for your company and they have no experience with it, they're not going to be the right fit for you at this point because they're not willing to learn and adapt. And that just shows that someone's not willing to be the best version of themselves because they're not using a tool. It's like almost saying, hey, we're all going to hang out tonight, but I'm going to choose to walk to the location. You guys get to take your cars. I'm walking there. Like, we're not going to wait an hour for you to show up. We're all taking our cars, Right. Why wouldn't you use the tool that's available? Like you have a car, you're sitting it in your driveway. Why don't you just drive that here? So that's the same idea as like, when people say they're not using AI or whatever, and I've just heard that too many times of like, they're just like, it's like the bad side of it. And I'm just thinking, you're going to get to the same spot we are, just a lot slower.
Yeah, exactly. And they might not get to the same spot. The quality, what we're finding is we're actually able to produce higher quality output by using AI and able to do it faster. And so
that's a great point.
Not only are people going to take longer to do it, but what they produce is not going to be as good.
What I was trying to get at is the whole idea of it's taking jobs, right? And so the way I look at it is it taking jobs? I don't see it that way right now. I think what it's doing, like you said, everyone on your team still has a job, but now they have these additional tools. So someone who knows how to use AI will, yes, take the job of someone who's not using AI. That will happen. But the job itself, I don't think is going to be gone completely.
I mean, I think it depends. I think there are some jobs that will not exist. For example, 2.5 years, maybe 3 years ago, we had a full-time copywriter on our team. We do not anymore. We do not rehire that role. Now, we didn't fire that person because
they just
of AI,
had to change. They had to adapt.
But we chose not to rehire that role. So somebody doesn't have a copywriting job that they would have had because I don't need a copywriter full-time on staff anymore. I might
need someone who knows how to use AI to get the copywriting done that person did.
For sure. Or something with a content strategist. I mean, we used to have a content strategist on staff. We don't anymore. I train up the rest of our team to be equipped to know how to use AI appropriately to get the right outcomes and to understand what's good output and what's bad output and what needs to be adjusted and all those kind of things. There's a skill to that, but we're orchestrators, not executors anymore. And so it will take some jobs, just like, the freezer took the guy's job who delivered ice. And so there's things to pay attention to in the midst of all that.
And I think that happens when you got something that's as massive of a change or as an improvement in technology like this is, where, things will change, but you have to be willing to change with it. And the person who was a copywriter, that was their only skill, I think what they can do then is learn how to use AI and teach other people how to do it. Now you just created yourself a new position. You're teaching other people how to use it. So learn, adapt. Hey, we're talking in business, changes happen. Adversity is going to hit, as a business owner and entrepreneur, it's inevitable that those things happen. I'd love you to share, as a business leader, I'll speak for myself, failed many times over and over. You try something, it doesn't work, try something, it does work, and you try to replicate that. Michael Jordan's quote always stuck with me, and I love it. He says, I missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I failed over and over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed. So I'd love you to kind of share, a moment, or it could be personal, business, anything where maybe you failed and you had to learn from that personally. And then just share like how you turned it into a success. Any lessons that you've learned along the way personally that you'd like to inspire our audience with today?
I think that resilience and the ability to get back up, when you get knocked down, is probably the number one trait required to be a successful entrepreneur.
I agree.
Perseverance in the midst of adversity. If you can't handle that, you should not be an entrepreneur. If that's super stressful for you, it's not going to end up well. Mm-hmm. I've probably forgotten more failures than I can even remember at this point. Honestly, I've certainly had more things that didn't work than things that did. But I always say entrepreneurs, successful ones, are the people who stand on top of all their failures instead of laying under them. Mm-hmm. And I think that really is the differentiator. It's a mindset thing. I mean, there's been, gosh, I don't even know. I can't even think of a specific example because I probably blacked them all out. But there's been 1,000 times at least that I've tried something or thought this is a great idea. And then you get 2 months into it and you're like, this is not a good idea. We should do something totally different. And you pivot and you make adjustments and you move and you change and you try something new. And that's the way.
I totally understand. Like if I was asking myself that question, I don't know what would come to mind, because I agree with you. You learn, adapt, you move on. Like are you a football fan at all?
Yeah, for sure. Unfortunately, I'm a Jaguars fan, but
okay.
Yeah.
Well, you guys had our number a few times. We finally beat you on Monday night. We really put the beat down on you, but it was because of the last two performances.
Yeah.
We owed you. But anyway, football, you got the cornerback, not the quarterback, the cornerback position on the outside. And if they get burned on a play, receiver runs down and scores a touchdown, they always talk about how a corner has to have a short, term memory, because on the next play, if they're thinking about the last one, they're half a second slower. And I think I agree with you as a business owner. Like I just have to, that's how we need to operate. Like if something goes wrong, if you spend all day thinking about it, you just wasted an entire day of productivity. It's not saying you don't think about it, but to let it affect you in a way where now it's changing you for the whole day or whatever, that becomes problematic. So I agree with you. Like it's hard to think about, what were some of your failures? Because you just got to move on. You correct it, you move. Like you're so far past it. 3 days later, you're not even thinking about it anymore, right?
I think it's a short debriefs, long planning session, small rear view mirror, big front windshield.
Amen to that as well. Share this then, like in that same vein. If you can go back and change anything from your past, or you get to choose to double down on it, to use a gambling term. So if you did something you're really proud of and you want to do it again, what would you do? Would you go back? Would you change something, or what would you double down on?
Gosh, I would have bought a lot more domain names when I was 17 years old. I tell you that.
Yeah.
That's all I would have done. Honestly, $35 back then was a lot of money to buy a domain name for a year. But
Jay, I don't understand. What is this Google.com that you want to own?
Yeah. There were plenty of names that you could have bought back in 97, 98, 99 that are probably worth millions of dollars today. So that's some digital real estate that I wish I had been aware of. Early in the ad spend days, I wish I had put a lot more money into paid ads. I mean, when paid advertising first came out, like Google PPC ads, for example, you could buy front page ads for, very high ranking keywords for 5 cents a click. I mean, the opportunity that was out there at that time that's not there anymore was just absolutely exponential, So those are two specific things. I'm like, I wish if I'd gone back, I'd have put some.
Yeah, but it's like Back to the Future. You got the sports almanac, and you knew every game.
Hindsight's 20/20.
Yeah, but not just saying if you had the sports almanac, you'd bet on the Super Bowl winner every year. But what about something that you've done that you double down on? Like we did this, and it really helped us, and you got to where you're at today. Just so someone's like, hey, what's something I can go either reflect on myself or actually take action on. The thing is, I want people to tune in today and hear your story and then be inspired to take action on it.
Yeah, probably 7 or 8 years ago, I read a book by a guy named Donald Miller called Building a StoryBrand. And that book, when I read it, I thought, this is something we should double down on. This is something we should put all of our eggs in the basket on and see what happens. I think at the time we had just crossed about $1 million in revenue. We've probably 4x'd since then. And at the end of the day, that strategy of simplifying and clarifying a client's message and even our own messaging before we went to market has revolutionized how we do marketing. It seems so simple, and yet sometimes the simplest things are the hardest. And then currently, I mean, we're doubling down on AI. I spend the vast majority of my days thinking about it, working on it, learning it, implementing it in teams. It is the future. Anybody who thinks it's just a fad, this is not a Web 3.0 super nerdy thing that only a few people are going to get into. This will revolutionize how all business functions over the next 10, 20 years. Not just business, but medical industries, nonprofits, for-profits, you name it. Everything will be changed by governments. Nothing will be untouched. And so that's definitely an area that I'm heavily doubling down on right now.
Yeah, those are two great options right there. Like we talked about with AI, yeah, double down on it. Anyone who's tuning in, if you feel a little hesitant, like, got to work through that. It's probably a personal, maybe you've done something in the past that didn't work out, but this is not going away. Like I said, embrace it. StoryBrand, that's something I haven't talked about a ton about on the show, but Donald Miller, you said, right?
Yep.
That book has been recommended to me. And so it's come up a bunch, but the, kind of, I don't want to say elementary because that makes it sound like it's not important or it's like really too easy to understand, but like maybe a core principle of business or of marketing is storytelling, right? And so I think a lot of people overlook that when they're trying to get crafty with branding and thinking colors and logos and website design and all this stuff. It's like, that's all great. That's all parts of the puzzle. But the story is what people are connected to. The reason that a movie is successful at the box office is did it have a good story, right? And you look at all the stories that we've, in the past that have done well, it's because there's an interesting story that people remember and it hits their heart. So when people are buying a product from a brand, they don't even realize it, but they bought into the story, whether it was a 30-second ad, an Instagram, someone just sharing something, there was a story element to it. Can you talk about some of the essential elements that tell a great story for a brand?
Yeah, I mean, to begin with, we always say that when you confuse, you lose. Design builds trust, but words are what sell. And at the end of the day, marketing can be confusing and expensive, but it needs to be clear and effective. A lot of people make the mistake. This is the number one mistake. The number one mistake that people make in marketing is they make it about themselves. They make it about their business. It's not about them. It's about the people that they serve. It's about the people that we get to help solve their problems. So the core question that really StoryBrand focuses on is, what is the problem that you are solving? Who is it that you serve? What do they want? What problem do they have? And how do you come alongside them and help them win the day? And so recrafting story around that narrative is really the game changer. The mistake people make, though, is they want to make it about them. They want to tell their own story. And frankly, nobody cares about your story until they know that it can help them. And so that's where we always start.
Mic drop moment right there, dude. That was incredible, Jay. That's so true. It's something that I've realized and struggle with even myself, where it's like, hey, I want to help you out because of what we can do for you, what we. It's like, no. Who are they? Who are you first? I got to understand you so I can then serve you, right? And so what a great reminder. That is a huge moment. If anyone tuning in, thank you for being with us. That right there is your golden nugget of the day. Make your messaging about who you're serving, and then that story will resonate with them. That's awesome. Hey, last year you said you wanted to book this pirate ship for Agency Builders Retreat. And I know you said promises made, promises kept. So give us the full scoop on that, how'd it go?
Yeah, so I run a organization called Agency Builders. It's just a bunch of other guys and gals who run agencies similar to mine all over the country, really all over the world. And every year we do a retreat down here in St. Augustine. I like to do it at the end of March, early April, where it's still freezing everywhere else, but it's nice and sunny here usually. And last year, we had been going to an event and we were coming over a bridge and there was a pirate ship out in the water. And somebody was like, oh, that pirate ship looks fun. I was like, we're doing the pirate ship next year. Now, I may or may not have had a margarita at the time, not while I was driving. I was riding a bus, it was fine. Sure. But I said, we're doing the pirate ship next year.
You overpromised. That's right. And then you had to deliver.
I promised we're doing the pirate ship. And so sure enough, I ended that year. We booked the pirate ship, and this year we had about 100 folks out on the pirate ship for the opening reception of the evening, and it was a blast, a lot of fun.
What do you get it for a couple hours? And is there like a built-in staff that runs the bar and all that?
They had a whole pirate staff. They're all dressed up. They were doing a pirate show and some music, and they had a taco bar.
And everyone threw you off the plank? You had to walk the plank?
And the whole thing. No, they didn't throw me off, so that's good.
That's awesome, man. So is everyone that's part of the Agency Builders, they're all marketing agencies, or
they are
podcast agencies, or what do you got?
That's a mix. So there's a little bit of everything. But for the most part, they're people in the agency space. And by that, I mean digital marketing, advertising, could be app development, could be design, could be podcasts, but anything that help other people grow their businesses is really the focus of the core.
Well, I will check you out because that's right in my wheelhouse, brother.
There's probably about 400 people in the community right now, and about 100 or so show up to the event every year down here in St. Augustine, and it's a blast.
Yeah. One thing I respect about you is, and again, I've just seen you from afar, haven't been hanging out with you. Although, hey, if you want, I'll come down and visit you in St. Augustine in the middle of winter up here when it's negative, 19 degrees. That's
the time to come.
But I respect the fact that you work hard. You got all these different things you got going on, but your family is still that's your why. And I know you're someone who serves God and you're vocal about that too. You're a believer. So I just have a lot of respect for you in that. How do you balance it all? That's one thing I struggle with. I only have, my daughter's 10. I have one kid. You mentioned you have 3, correct?
I have 5.
5. Okay. Yeah. So I told you I wasn't good in math. So 5 plus your wife, and then you got to give yourself some time. How the heck do you balance it all? And I'm not saying you have all the answers here, but what are some things that maybe you've established that help you be able to do all that?
Oh man,
maybe you don't have it figured out. That's okay too. You can say, shit, well, I don't know.
Yeah, the first thing is there is no balance. I think that's a false narrative. This idea that somehow every day or even every week is going to be somehow equally balanced is just not realistic. It's just not. Some weeks are 100% family, and some weeks are 100% business, and some weeks are 100% ministry. I mean, it just depends. Every week's a little bit different. And I have 5 kids ranging from 12 to 20 right now, and my wife and I have been married for 22 years.
Dude, that's awesome.
And
so she knew that you were a hustler. You started your first business at 17. Yeah, it's not like, you used to be such a you're working at this bank and 9 to 5 and you'd come home and work was done. No, you were always rattling off ideas and you're very
I'm a workaholic, for sure. Hi, my name is Jay. I'm a workaholic, and it's real. I like to work. I like the results that it produces. I enjoy the things that I get to do. And I don't think that's wrong. That said, if I'd like to stay married, which I would, there are some things that are required of that. And one of which is just really good, clear communication, and that's not always easy. Anybody who's had a long-term relationship of any kind knows well, I thought I communicated really clearly, but clearly I did not. And don't get me wrong. I'm still struggling with this. In fact, that happened this week. Monday, what day is it? As of recording Thursday. This, Monday and Tuesday of this week, I had a event that I had to go to, and it was an overnight event. Well, I usually am pretty good about telling my wife, hey, I'm going to be out of town for X, Y, and Z. And to be fair, it was only one night. I left one afternoon. I was back the next night. It's not like it was a long time, but there was just a lot going on at home with the kids, and I did not clearly communicate that. Well, guess what? That created a little bit of tension, for the lack of a better word, in my home and in my relationship, and I got to navigate that. That was a mistake. I need to do a better job of clearly communicating ahead of time what's going on, and then just understanding what the priority of the day is. One of the mistakes that I have consistently made that I'm continually working at getting better on is trying to do too many things at once. Learning to be where my feet are is really important. Like if I'm, in a couple of weeks, we're going to England to visit with my wife's family over there. It's going to be great. And I plan to turn all work off while I'm there. I have to physically disable my email off of my phone and physically delete the Slack app off of my phone because I'm such an addict.
Me too. Yeah.
And I'm not quite this bad, but I got a buddy who he's so bad that he actually has his assistant change his password on his email. So he can't even go to like gmail.com and log into his email without having to call her to get access to it.
That's the first time I heard that. Like,
I think that's
they literally
brilliant.
Block him out of
he
being
has to
able to
block
access
himself
work.
out of his own access because he's a workaholic. Like it's a real thing, Just like alcoholics cannot be around a bunch of drinking. Like it's not generally a good idea, for an alcoholic to be like, oh, what do we got here?
I'll just
like
have
tequila,
one. Yeah, I'll just have one. Right.
It's just not a good idea. And it's the same thing for me. Like if one email leads to 50 emails and it's, it's no different than one drink leads to 50 drinks. The consequences might not appear as immediately as damaging, but they certainly can be and are in the long term because ultimately it's the same problem. And the problem of an alcoholic and a workaholic is negligence of the people around them. And ultimately it's selfishness. It's I want to do these things. I like to work. I like to solve problems for other people. But in that moment, what I'm doing is I'm elevating that work above my marriage, and I'm elevating that work above my children in a time, if I'm on vacation, for example, where I'm saying that they're the priority, and the reality is that they're not, And so it's like anything, if you want to know where somebody's priorities are, look at their calendar and look at their bank account, and you will find out. And so I don't for a second pretend to have it all figured out. I'm constantly learning and think I will be until I die.
Wow, another mic drop moment right there, dude. So good. I mean, you have to set those boundaries. It's easier said than done, but you have to be intentional, like you were just saying, about if I'm going on vacation and it's, that you're a workaholic. So number one thing I learned this a long time ago, before you can fix anything, the number one thing you need to do is you have to realize it. And you realize it, man, I'm a workaholic. I know I'm a workaholic. I got to take Slack off my phone. I got to take, all your different, we use Asana, but whatever your, work management is, you got to take that off. Maybe allow your team to call you if there's an emergency, but anything less than that, it's taken care of. Right. And then really, the tough part for me is I started my business in 2017. It started as me, myself, and I. I do have a team of editors now. We have a PR director, helps with communications with, keeping our clients in line and everything. And I'm in the process of hiring an executive assistant because I'm going through exactly what you're talking about, where if I want to take some family time, I just went to Buffalo actually to be with my family for the week leading up to Easter. And, there's nights when Isabel's going to bed and I'm on my computer still because I'm still doing stuff. And it's like, so I know I need to hire an executive assistant to help me be able to have more time with my family that's actually, planned. It's not just a happens. Like if you just assume that time with your family is going to happen, it's going to get eaten up by all these other things that get thrown your way. So I think that's really good too. You got to set a game plan and actually like roll it out. And it sounds like you've done that. 22 years with your wife. Incredible. Cheers to that. I don't think people celebrate that as much as they should. It sounds like you guys are like the perfect partners for each other. She knew early on what she was getting into. And I think it takes a special person to appreciate that. And I don't know your wife. I've never met her and you haven't shared that much about her, but I'm sure if you go 22 years and 5 amazing kids later, like there's a lot that you guys must love about each other and understand the craziness of it all. Like, so.
And the other thing too is like, not turn this into a marriage podcast, but
we could,
the reality is she didn't know what she was getting into because none of us really do.
Right.
Like, you can think you know what it's like to have a child until you do. Like a lot of people are out here, like,
true.
talking about what it's like to have a child. They don't know until they actually have one. You can think you know what it's like to have many children, but you don't until you have many of them. You can think you know what it's like to be married or be married for many years. I'm not the same guy that she married. I was a lot dorkier back then, certainly made a lot less money. She didn't marry for my money, I'll tell you that, because I had none when we got married. And we just figured out along the way that the key for me is one thing in our relationship, and that is I have a clear vision for the future. Now, I had a guy, I got to do a podcast with Dr. John Deloney, who works with Dave Ramsey a while back, and he corrected me on this, which I thought was really wise, because what I said to him was this, which is, when I close my eyes, I can see a vision of the future. I can see myself sitting on a porch with a nice glass of bourbon, sitting next to Claire, my current wife, and we're much older, probably with gray hair. Hopefully I still have my hair. I can see kids running around in the yard. I can see my grandkids out playing on jet skis in the river or whatever it may be. I can see all those things. And he said, you just have to keep in mind, you might not be able to control all those things. And I was like, that's a good point. And I kind of thought to myself, but what I'm going to do is everything I can to get to that point. Like Claire and I are still together because we've decided to be, and that's not easy, but we've both decided that. And it
is in your control. That outcome is in your control.
I can only control my half of it. You know what I mean? All of us can only control our half of things. And it's not half. It's 100-100, not 50-50. That's part of the problem too.
Yeah, that's agreed.
But at the end of the day, same thing with business. Like I have a vision of what the future looks like, but I didn't know 6 years ago, 5 years ago, that AI was going to be what it is today. I didn't know 20 years ago that social media would be what it is today. And so you've got to adapt, you've got to adjust. Yeah. And sometimes the vision of the future has to change too, because the circumstances around you are not what you hoped they would be. And that's okay too, Yeah. We pick ourselves back up. It goes back to that perseverance thing that I said from the beginning, and we find a new vision for the future and we move towards that as best we can.
Yeah, that's really well said, and a great point for this podcast. And something too, I don't want to just run through it. You said that, maybe we don't want to turn this to a marriage podcast. I get where you're going, but at the same point, like people tuning into this, they might probably run a business because the show is very business focused, but we're human, right? We got relationships. Yeah. We're either single, or we want a relationship, we're in a relationship, or we're engaged, or we're married, right? We're in one of those like 4 or 5 buckets. And so myself right now, I'm single, but I'm also in this spot where I have this belief, and someone just recently, a couple of days ago, was like, you got to like overcome this, because I'm in a situation where like I have my business and I have my time with my daughter, and those are the two most important things to me, and not in that order, by the way. She's the most important, obviously. And so, I'm in a position where it's like, okay, well, you're going to find someone, you're going to find the right person out there in a relationship, and, like make yourself available. And it's this belief that I have of like, is someone going to want to come into the crazy, of the entrepreneurship where I'm going to need to be focused on my business so much? They're probably not going to like that. And then also a couple of years ago, when business wasn't doing as well as it is now, you're talking about being broke when you met your wife and she still loved you and fell in love with you and got married. Like, that's the story of a lot of entrepreneurs. And so the encouragement of that, Jay, is, the right person will love you for who you are in that situation either way. And that's something I need to like realize myself, is that, someone's going to see I don't have it all figured out, but that's okay. Because if they love me, they're going to understand this guy is fighting for a good thing for himself, his daughter, and then they'll be a part of that equation too. So
that's right.
Thank you for that reminder. I needed it today. That was awesome. So I know you got to run in a second. I got like one more question for you. Before we do that, I do want to give a shout out to Social Chameleon right here. SC on my chest is socialchameleon.us. Transform your podcast. It's Social Chameleon. You press record and we handle the rest. You can check us out at socialchameleon.us. Also, this podcast is being recorded on riverside.fm. I use Riverside for the show. I've used it as a producer of a show for many of our clients as well. I love it. And yes, I do get a little bit if you go to riverside.fm, but the number one reason I want you to check it out there is because it works well and you're going to love it and the quality is great. So I wouldn't recommend it if I didn't use it myself. And also the distribution, if you're wondering, hey, how do you get his podcast on Apple, Spotify, and all those different places? We use libsyn.com. It's libsyn.com. So Jay, is there anything you wanted to promote? I know I talked about like your website's going to be in the show notes, but is there anything going on? Or if there's a business owner that has an agency, are you taking applications in your group? What can we promote here?
I've got a great resource that would be helpful for business owners, leaders, entrepreneurs who are looking to get their messaging right. It's a free resource. We talked about this StoryBrand idea, but what do I do with that? You can go to StoryBrandCourse.com. That's StoryBrandCourse.com, and you can download a free 5-part video series that will teach you how to get your messaging right. So grab that free resource, and if you do the things in that video, it will have a huge, huge impact. And obviously, if you need help, our team at Business Builders will be happy to help as well.
That's awesome. Do you have time for like one more question, or you got
For sure.
You got to run? All right, cool. So something, I don't have it in my notes. Didn't plan on it, but a conversation that comes up a lot. I always say, be great and be grateful at the end of every episode. But then we just kind of move on. I want to talk about the word great and greatness. So how would you define it? How is that important for you to make sure you are being great and leveling up all over and over again? Like you're not just content with being okay.
I think that for me, the question is, am I who that I say that I am? That's integrity. Am I who I say I am? So behind me on the wall, people that are watching the video, are our core values at our agency. And I always say that a good culture is a team of people whose attitudes and behaviors align with their core values. And so for me, ultimately, greatness is to love God and serve Him well in all things. And the question is, am I actually doing that? And then I think on the gratitude side that you mentioned as well, gratitude is the antidote to many things. Much angst, worry, anxiety, depression can be solved with a good gratitude list. So one of the things that I do in my own life is I have a list of gratitude list, and there's one item for every year that I've been alive. So I just add an item every year, and then I read through that list probably once a week. Wow, that's when cool. I do, it's hard to get through it. If I were to read it out loud right now, it'd be hard for me to get through it without choking up. Because it's such a rich reminder of all the goodness that God has given me in my life. And despite whatever my current circumstances may be, a rough day, a bad month, a bad year, there's been a lot of things to be grateful for. I mean, even, the other day I was complaining about something and I said, you know what? The reality is though, I'm in an air-conditioned environment with a roof over my head and I got to eat today. That's pretty good and better than most people throughout the history of the world. Right. That's a lot to be grateful for.
Amen to that, brother. You got your heart in the right place, your head's in the right place. And I love that you have the ability to unplug. It's so important. We got to recharge our batteries, and to spend that time with your family is great. So again, I know, you're not out here saying, I want the pat on the back. You're not asking for the pat. I'm giving it to you. And I know we always feel like, hey, we don't have it all figured out. That is okay. If you're tuning into the show, thank you for getting all the way to the end of the show. It shows that you care. It shows that you're looking for value out of this. And we just want everyone who's here at the end to realize we're grateful that you're here, and we appreciate you on YouTube or Apple, Spotify, wherever you're tuning into the show. Thank you guys for being along with us on the journey. Jay Owen, you're the man. Any last words before you jet?
No, just keep on keeping on, folks. Don't do it alone. Get in community. None of us are meant to do it alone.
Yeah, really well said. Be great, and I am grateful for you, my man. Cheers.
Thanks, Mike.
Keep on moving on.